Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Political Power Ranker, first week of February, as we look at another big race that's shaping up in the primary season. Spencer Kimball, the director of polling, Emerson College. Thank you very much, Spence. Good to see you again. Spencer's got the answers, everyone.
That's why I'm the professor.
That's why you are the professor, and I'm Chris Berg, director of political content for affiliates for Next Star Media Group. And we are here to talk polling. That's what this show is all about. We jump around the country, going from here to there to show you what's going on and give you a sense of how these races are shaping up this year. And today, Spence, we've got a place that's got a hot Senate Republican primary.
Well, Kentucky sure knows their horse racing, and we're not looking at the Derby, though. We're going to look at the primaries.
There you go. So what do you have in Kentucky?
Well, we did a study here of 1,000 likely voters. Again, we're looking at Democratic and Republican primary voters here. So you'll see it skewed towards the Republicans because they have a higher turnout in Kentucky. But we used our texting and online panel to collect the data, and we have some interesting races to discuss today.
Kentucky is an interesting state to poll in because you've got big cities that are just across the border, Cincinnati to the north, Nashville to the south, but not really large cities within the state. Louisville being the largest, Lexington, obviously, but it's not. It's a little bit more difficult to poll, I would imagine, just because it's more rural than many of the states we're in.
Yeah, exactly. We've had a chance, and of course, we like the challenge of trying to pull these states. We've been a little light on the Democratic side in some of the general and last gubernatorial race by about 5 points. And in these primaries, we see late surges that we are expecting. So as you look at our undecided numbers, what we saw in our previous polling is projecting the winner, but not by the magnitude of what Cameron or the Democrats were winning by. We'll see if we can tighten that up here in 26.
All right. First big horse race out of the chute is the Republican Senate primary. So let's talk about that.
Well, yeah, we've got this primary, and this got shook up last week or 2 weeks ago when Elon Musk got involved. But what we're looking at is Congressman Andy Barr with a slight lead over the former Attorney General David Cameron. And what we're seeing is an age divide here. Barr is doing better with those over 70. Cameron's doing better with those 50 to 69 or so. Morris, he doesn't seem to have a strong base of support, but he has general support across demographics. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks and months if he's able to grow that base the way Barr has done that with particularly those with postgraduate degrees.
And this is one of the first polls that shows Andy Barr in the lead. Anything else that you think may be driving that?
Well, we're going to see what President Trump does in this race with the high number of undecided voters. If he comes in line with Barr, that would put him over the finish line. If he comes in line with one of the other two candidates, that could really shake things up pretty quickly before that May 19th primary date.
Right. Well, we do not want to waste any more time in getting to Bodie Brooks, political reporter, Fox 56 in Lexington. Bodie's made quite a name for himself, breaking story after story, political story after story across the state in recent months and years. So, Bodie, thanks very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. Now, you saw those numbers, Senate primary. I know that's what people are talking about in Kentucky. What are you thinking?
Well, as you all mentioned, it is noteworthy that this is going to be the first set of numbers where we see Andy Barr take the lead. This race really got started about a year ago, whenever Senator Mitch McConnell announced that he was not seeking re-election. That very same day, the former Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, announced his bid for that seat and has maintained a polling lead ever since then. But it's in polls that we've seen be released from the campaigns themselves, so you always sort of take it with a little grain of salt.
So while we have you here, let's just walk through the three leading candidates and tell us a little bit about them so our viewers can understand where they're coming from and what's their background. Start with Andy Barr.
Yeah, starting with Andy Barr, he is the congressman for Lexington and much of central Kentucky. He's been representing Kentucky in Congress since 2012 and serves on both the Financial Services and Foreign Affairs committees, two very powerful positions there. Then you have Daniel Cameron. He is the former Attorney General, as I mentioned, and he was also the Republican nominee for governor in the 2023 race, so he's been on a statewide ballot multiple times. And then you have Nate Morris. He is the CEO of Rubicon, that is a trash garbage processing company. He has a very rags to riches type story and is very much taken, sort of the outsider approach when it comes to campaigning for this seat, and has also taken a lot of very heavy anti-McConnell rhetoric as well. That's become a large staple of his campaign.
One of the things that's unique to Kentucky, and I'm not sure everyone knows about, so I want to share that with everyone, and you can help me here, is the event at Fancy Farm in far western Kentucky. Small town. They have a big event there every year. We went to the 144th annual event in July. Tell us a little bit about Fancy Farm. We're seeing some pictures here right now because it's in like a shed. Where these speeches are given.
Yeah, it's under this small picnic pavilion. It's this historic Catholic church, fundraiser that got started, well over a century ago. It was Governor Happy Chandler, I want to say in the 30s, 40s, somewhere around that time, that really popularized the political speaking. And if you've ever seen the movie like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, think of that old style Americana, soapbox style politicking. That is very much the environment of Fancy Farm, and heckling is very much encouraged by the crowd. Is seen as a way to, I guess, humble these candidates in a sense. So if you go and actually, witness this in person, oftentimes the crowd can be overpowering the speaker, and if it's their first time on the stage, that can be a little intimidating. But jokes are encouraged, heckling is encouraged, and often the candidates trade barbs between each other, and it's all done in good fun.
It is intense. That's the word that I have to describe it, is because the barbs are flying from all directions, and if you don't watch out, you're going to get hit by one of them, even as an observer. One other note on that is Mitch McConnell. He got kind of a mixed review when he came on stage from everyone. There was polite clapping, but nothing that would befit someone who had been a tremendously long-serving senator who just renounced his retirement.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell's departure is certainly what makes this particular race so much more interesting. He has got an extensive legacy dating back to the 80s, whenever he was first elected to that office, and he's been very transformative in that role, regardless of whether you like him or not. I think that we can objectively say that he's been very influential. Over the past year, ever since he announced that he was not going to be seeking re-election, we've seen a lot of these different events, on the local level, sort of pay tribute and homage to him. Senator McConnell has been a very frequent speaker at Fancy Farm, and that has helped, kind of keep the attention and relevance on the event. Is something that I think, from what I've heard shared, from those that are a lot closer to him, it's something that he actually really enjoys going to, and it's meant a lot to him. The anti-McConnell rhetoric that you're hearing a lot in this race, again, largely is coming from the Morris camp, but you heard a little bit of that from the former Attorney General, Daniel Cameron, who is got a very close relationship to him, both personally and professionally. And you've also heard a little bit of distancing from Representative Barr as well. All of that mainly due to McConnell's opposition to many of the different cabinet picks that President Trump made right at the very beginning of his administration. And because of the general distaste that many in the MAGA camp right now have for Senator McConnell, it's really created an interesting dynamic in this race where you see some candidates like Cameron and Barr sort of try and straddle the, we're going to respect his legacy here, but we may not, fully agree on everything, versus Morris, who in many of these events at Fancy Farm and at some of the dinners, that lead up to that event, various political breakfasts and such, didn't even stand up to clap for him. So you're seeing that play out, and is one of the many narratives in this race.
And that was one of the major differences at Fancy Farms and the speeches. His was much more intense. The other two just kind of took it for what it was worth and made no mistakes and got out of there. So anyway, we sidetracked ourselves a little bit of Fancy Farms, but that little color for you just to understand Kentucky politics. And that was kind of the unofficial launch of this race on the Republican side. Spence, I didn't forget about you. We need to get back to you because we got a bunch of numbers to get to and a great poll. So let's move on to the Democratic side. And what'd you find?
Yeah, let's take a look at the top lines here in the Democratic race. Competitive, it's a rematch of the 2020 race where McGrath actually beats Booker. Now we're going to see if Booker can repay McGrath in this primary. He ran again in 22, lost. McGrath ran in 20, lost. It's 11-point race. Where Booker's very strong is with black voters. He's winning 46-9. And with white voters, he's winning by about 6-7 points. So those are key voting blocks. He's also winning with male voters and female voters. So for McGrath right now, I don't see a base group of support that's going to help her, but we do have a few months until the primary. We'll see if she's able to circle the wagons. But it looks like Booker's in as the favorite starting out.
Bodie, back in 20, Amy McGrath was hailed as a potential person to knock off Mitch McConnell, and her experience in the military was touted. I guess a combat pilot, I believe.
She's a fighter pilot and a mom.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about her and Charles Booker briefly here.
Well, that moniker is certainly something that you heard a lot in the McGrath campaign whenever she ran back in 2020. She spent over $90 million in that race, and she didn't even come close to beating Senator McConnell. Senator McConnell got 57% of the vote in that race. She ended up with 38%. Whenever she made her announcement in October, certainly there was a sense of, thanks but no thanks. This is not the first time that we've seen her on the ballot. She also faced Andy Barr back in 2018 in an attempted challenge against him for Congress. Booker was the most recent Democratic Senate nominee. He faced sitting Senator Rand Paul back in 2022. And again, in that race, you didn't see Booker getting close. You saw just as wide of a margin as you saw in the McConnell-McGrath race. Booker got 38% of the vote time around, Paul with 61% of the vote. From those that I have spoken to that are a bit more connected behind the scenes, there is a sense that Booker got in the race because McGrath got in the race. At the time, there was already, I want to say, 3 or 4 previously announced Democratic candidates that had already decided to jump in before either of those two names got in late fall. And ever since McGrath and Booker said that they were running for the Democratic nomination, they've really kind of blown every other name out of the water, including Dale Romans, who's a very well-known horse trainer here, very well-funded in his race, and kind of got the silent wink and a nod from Governor Beshear to run, and is taking a lot more of that middle ground, bipartisan approach to winning the nomination versus what you see with Booker and McGrath, which is appealing more to your progressive left voters, particularly on Booker's campaign.
You know what? We have so many more slides to get to. We need to take a quick break. Spence has got some job approval ratings that you're going to want to see. So one quick break, 1 minute away. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching Political Power Ranker. Welcome back to Political Power Ranker. We're talking all things Kentucky and the races going on there. Chris Berg, Political Director for the Next Star Media Group affiliates, and Spencer Kimball, Emerson College Polling Director, and Bodie Brooks, Political Reporter, Fox 56 in Lexington, Kentucky, joining us from the Bluegrass State. All right, Spence, we went through the horse races in the first segment. Now we got approval and disapproval, and we've found some really interesting numbers.
I think so, Chris. If we take a look at this, you see President Trump, Governor Beshear, they're popular, but they're popular for different reasons. Trump is at plus 13, which is kind of low. This is a state he wins by 33 points. And his favorability amongst independents is underwater. It's 30 favorable, 50% unfavorable. Beshear is on the other end of the spectrum. His, with the independents, he's 50% favorable, 23% unfavorable. So you can see how that independent group is swinging between Republicans and Democrats. And then you look at Senator Rand Paul. He's got a very strange coalition that he's built out there. He's only a plus 9 with Republicans, but he's a -5 with independents and a -19 with Democrats. So it's a very interesting group. I'm interested to see what Bodie is seeing on the ground. And then Mitch McConnell, served 7 terms, was really a Republican stalwart nationally. Right now, he's struggling in the state with a 15% approval rating.
Yeah, and we want to just mention we're recording the day after the senator was admitted to the hospital with flu-like symptoms. We wish him well in his recovery. But there's a lot of numbers there, Bodie, that are very interesting. What do you see there? What are you reacting to first?
Well, first we can go into the governor's numbers because he's already being looked at as a potential candidate for president next go round. He's a Democrat that has been elected twice now in what is considered a pretty safe Republican state, and has been reelected in the Trump era in a state that is voted for Donald Trump these past few elections. The thing with Beshear, there's very few cases people have against him to not like him outside of maybe some of the decisions he made in the coronavirus pandemic, which at that time, if you weren't really a fan of some of the different mandates going on, you likely weren't going to like what he was doing in that sense anyways. You see that being brought up by some on the Republican side in some of the attacks against him, but relatively speaking, the state's been doing very well economically. He's played a role in trying to attract businesses here to the state. The Republican-led General Assembly would argue, how much credit may be taken between them and the executive branch on that. But as I think we were discussing prior to the show, we've also had a lot of disasters here in Kentucky. We just went through an ice storm here. We had some horrific flooding, multiple tornadoes that have happened, just back to back to back throughout his time in office. And he is a very empathetic leader. And by frequently trying to play that role as, a consoler in chief as an executive, I think that is won a lot of people by, frequently being in these areas that got hit, East Kentucky, West Kentucky, very rural parts of the state, and constantly reassuring those communities that they were not going to be left behind.
Right. And what's interesting about him too, he's a low-key personality. He's not one of these rah-rah guys that just tries to fill a room. You like him when you meet him. He just seems like a good person to be around.
Yeah, we've spoken face to face a number of times. He's very different from your Gavin Newsom style Democrat that you're seeing, which is, going very hard on the attack right now with what Republicans are doing. Beshear is trying to take the more middle ground, moderate, let's all kind of bring each other together kind of approach. He's always been very much that Mr. Rogers kumbaya style of leader. It's very rare to see him publicly show any sort of consternation um, uh, with
Well,
his. Go ahead.
well, real quick, I want to before we get to another slide, but I want to ask you one more question. Does the Mitch McConnell number surprise you? 15% approval.
They don't. McConnell is generally polled rather low here, even though he's been reelected quite easily the past number of times. I think there's been a number of Republicans who, even if they don't like him, may have been willing to vote for him before. Certainly, what you've seen with the second Trump administration this go around, I think you've got a lot of people who are just kind of fed up and just think that his time has passed. I'm certainly a lot more interested in the numbers for Senator Paul. I'm curious if some of that is a reaction to some of his outspokenness against the Trump administration lately as well.
Right, right. Well, let's move on. Spence, you got more numbers. You got a comparison with Beshear and McConnell, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, as the 2 elected officials are heading out of office, Beshear goes out in a popular note and McConnell is not. And when we get into these numbers, you'll see that Beshear is obviously strong within the Democratic base, but he's somewhat liked by Republicans and he's very well liked by independents. On McConnell's side, it's really that Republican number that sticks out at 22%. You would think that the base, after everything he's done for the party, would stick with him. It seems to have left him in large numbers. And as he leaves office, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to improve his legacy at some point, that he leaves with a higher favorability at some point.
And McConnell is not going to endorse anyone, is he, Bodie?
I think that's going to be very unlikely in the primary.
Just
Well, if he
go
might
ahead.
hurt the person.
Exactly.
If he
That's what
Yeah,
I'm
endorses
it
thinking.
could hurt them, and frankly, the endorsement everybody's watching for is that of President Trump.
Right. Right. Moving on, this next slide, Spence, is something we should just chat about a little bit further because we touched on it. But Andy Beshear, should he run for president?
Exactly. So Bodie's been, toying with this idea, and we asked the voters, hey, what do you think of that? And you can see that they're kind of split. It's 35% think he should, 48% think he shouldn't. There's a clear partisan divide here where the independents, that's the number I'm always looking at, they're split 38-34. And it seems as if, though, when we get into some of those issues, particularly like the latest storm, Beshear seems to be doing very well in reacting, very close to what Bodie was saying about being on the ground and being able to, properly reflect what people are feeling in those moments. 40% give him an A, and another 24% give him a B. So he's doing really well in those grades.
What do you think of that, Bodie? Does he deserve those grades?
I think that it tracks. People like him. He's very approachable, as we've been discussing here. He very much kind of does that Clinton thing where if you speak to him, he'll make you feel like you're the only person in the room. He frequently speaks of his faith, which you don't often see from many Democratic leaders right now. I think the challenge that Beshear may have moving forward. First of all, every journalist here fully believes that he is going to run for president in the next cycle. There is zero doubt in my mind, nor or any of my political colleagues' minds. He is the chair of the Democratic Governors Association right now, which is going to put him in front of a lot of cameras, pushing for a lot of these statewide gubernatorial races over the next election cycle. He was just in Davos, kind of, making appearances there, in addition to, Governor Newsom and some of those others that are being considered as possible presidential candidates here in the near future as well. The challenge for him is going to be, whenever they're on that debate stage together, how does he stand out from those better known names?
Yeah,
Like
hang on 1 second. He was in Davos because I didn't see any coverage of him in Davos. I saw Newsom everywhere. Is that kind of, I mean, does that say anything to you?
I think it does. I think that Bashir, the challenge ahead of him is going to sort of be able to break into that national conversation. He's a name that sometimes still gets mentioned, but it's always in like that bunched group settings. You're not really seeing a lot of Fox News segments right now that are spewing over Governor Beshear like they do with Gavin Newsom and all of the stuff around Davos. He was not the only governor that was there. I think that Gretchen Whitmer was there, as well as another Republican governor that Beshear participated in a panel on.
Interesting stuff, and how politics works in the 2026 and moving forward. All right, one last slide, Spence. What issues are most important for Kentucky?
Yeah, so as we take a look at what's the most important issue, we split them up between those Republican primary voters and Democratic primary voters. And we can see that the economy is a top issue across the board, but more so for the Republicans. Threats to democracy, more so for the Democrats. What I think is important to point out is the healthcare issue percolating up. That thing, healthcare had kind of fallen off of the top issues. We asked it, but it was always in single digits. Kentucky, we're seeing that in the teens. And regarding the economy, we asked about the tariffs, if they're beneficial or harmful. For Republicans, it's about 2-1 that they're beneficial. For independents, it's 2-1 that they're harmful, and similar with Democrats, where it's almost like 4-1 that they're harmful. So I'm interested to know how that tariff issue is going to play out on the campaign trail, and if the candidates have used that at all, Bodie. Probably on the Democratic side more, but if the Republicans are splitting hairs over these tariffs yet.
You're not hearing as much about it, at least in campaign speak, but privately, a lot of Republicans, especially state lawmakers, have expressed some consternation over tariffs. Kentucky is a unique state because of how much our economy relies on exports. It's not just bourbon here. We also have aerospace products. It's a major export for us. A lot of cars are built here as well. So tariffs have hurt our economy, and Republican and Democratic lawmakers in power have said that objectively. between voters, they may have a different view of it depending on how much that particular issue has touched them. When it comes to healthcare, what you all mentioned there, I think is noteworthy given just the number of rural hospitals that could be in jeopardy over the next year or so, depending on the impacts of HR1. Certainly something that a lot of people are paying closer attention to. I think you're hearing a lot of discussion around energy right now amongst Republican candidates. Just a few weeks ago, Representative
Hey,
Barr.
Bodie, I apologize. We're getting a hard out here. We gotta get going here. So I apologize.
Oh,
Some great
boo.
stuff though. Spence, real quick, who's up, who's down?
If we take a look at those numbers on the upswing, looks like Governor Beshear is leaving office, pretty popular. And we'll see as he surfaces into this presidential race. Remember, after November 3rd, it's all going to be about 2028. And we'll see if he's able to make some inroads and find his lane in that Democratic primary.
And then who's down?
Well, also leaving office, Mitch McConnell, his favorability, his approval numbers way down. We do wish the senator well in his health, but as he leaves office, he's down.
Spence, thank you very much. Bodie, appreciate you joining us. Bodie Brooks, Fox 56 in Lexington, watches stuff out there. And you can follow us if you go to any one of these social media sites. Please check us out and make sure you check out Spence's poll at Emerson College Polling. It's always good stuff and stuff you don't want to miss. Thank you, everyone. And until next week, we'll see you.